edge audience, souls of the forgotten, spirits who walk through the fire of memory and the fog of suppressed truth. You are not here by chance. You were summoned by the echoes that still dare to whisper in the dark corridors of knowledge. You, yes you, have felt it, that itch in your mind, that strain behind your eyes, the ache of remembering something that no one taught you, the certainty of a truth that no book revealed. Because you know too much, and they can't trace the source. You are dangerous because the most potent truths cannot be traced. They are not etched on paper or archived in dusty databanks. They live in silence, in instinct, in your marrow. The truth that courses through you was not downloaded, not given. It emerged. It clawed its way up through your bloodline. It howled in your nightmares when you were still a child. And now, it screams when the world tells you to be quiet. And the louder that scream becomes, the more the world insists that you are insane. But that is because they fear you. Oh yes, they fear what you know, because what you know cannot be framed, cannot be labeled, cannot be dissected in their laboratories or neutralized by their drugs. You are an anomaly, an error in their system, a threat to the delicate lie they keep spinning over the masses like silk from a spider's mouth. Look around you. Do you see the blank stares, the pacified smiles? Do you feel how heavily programmed this world has become, how perfectly the machine hums? And yet here you are, the static in their signal, the glitch in their perfect broadcast. You know too much, not because someone told you, not because you stumbled upon a document or a confession, but because something ancient in you refused to die. Something primordial that saw through the mask. Something that remembered when you were never supposed to forget. You are not mad. You are awakened, and awakenings are never peaceful. No more, they come with fire and teeth and the terrifying clarity that nothing is what it seems. You tore through the veil while others slept soundly in their ignorance. And now, you walk with ghosts and forbidden names on your tongue. You see shadows that don't belong. Hear the cracks in the official stories. Feel the emptiness in the hearts of those who think they're free. You see the wires beneath the surface, the fingerprints on the mirror, the drip feed of manipulation disguised as care. Do you think it's an accident? That you ended up like this? That your curiosity just happened to outlive your fear? No, this was never random. You were made to question, designed to survive the purge of thought. You are the residue of every rebel who was burned, every prophet who was buried, every whisperer who met the silence too soon. You carry them, whether you like it or not. Their rage is yours now. Their insight is your inheritance. You know too much, and the source is not just untraceable, it is unkillable. They will come for you, not with chains or blades at first. Oh no, they're smarter than that. They will come with words, with offers, with soft hands and manufactured smiles. They will call you extreme, paranoid, unstable, all the while trying to push you back into the script. They will seduce you with comfort, lull you with distractions, bury you in shiny objects and digital narcotics. They'll surround you with mirrors reflecting their version of you until you doubt your own shape. But do not flinch, do not waver, because every word they use to break you proves your power. Every label they assign is a badge of your resistance. You are the evidence of a flaw in their algorithm, and they hate you because you do not respond like the others. You do not collapse under their weight. You rise. You rise because something in you refuses to kneel. You rise because surrender is more toxic than death. You rise because you've seen what happens to those who forget. They rot in comfort. They become polite corpses. You were never meant for that. You are a weapon born in silence, a mind they cannot decode. You are not merely awake, you are aware, and awareness is poison to the empire of lies. Yes, you know too much. You see through the illusion that obedience is safety, that repetition is truth, that silence is peace. You see the cage, not as it was sold to you, pretty and padded and kind, but as it truly is, a prison of the soul, disguised as civilization. They will say you're dangerous, and they will be right, because you are the kind of dangerous that cannot be bought or swayed, the kind that doesn't need validation or applause. You are the kind that survives, the kind that remembers, the kind that burns. You don't just see the lie, you see the architecture of the lie, the mechanics behind the illusion, the gears grinding behind the smile. You recognize the rhythm of manipulation, the cadence of control, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. That's the curse of knowing too much. It isolates you. It makes your world colder, darker. But that's where the real strength begins, because in that darkness, you stop depending on their light. You ignite your own. They can't trace the source of what you know, because it doesn't come from them. It comes from the spaces between generations, from trauma turned into wisdom, from pain refined into clarity. It comes from places they forgot to sanitize, from cracks in their perfect walls. You are not broken. You are unfinished, untamed. And that terrifies them more than anything else. You must become ruthless, not with others, but with the part of you that still wants to be accepted by them. Kill that need, starve it, let it die screaming, because it will betray you when you least expect it. Let your hunger for approval rot. Replace it with discipline, with purpose, with the satisfaction of building your own cathedral of thought in a world of prefab beliefs. Let your mind be a fortress, not a sponge. Question everything, especially the things that come easy, especially the things you're told not to think about. Do not waste time on comfort. Comfort is the opium of the controlled. Chase discomfort like a beast, hunt it, devour it. Because in discomfort, the truth bleeds out. In discomfort, you will meet the part of you that no one can kill, the part that doesn't sleep, doesn't bow, doesn't forget. That is where your edge is. That is where your power lives. You must walk that edge until you no longer fear the fall. And when you fall, because you will learn to fall with your eyes open. You will learn to use the impact. You will learn to make every collapse a weapon. There will be nights where you want to trade your knowledge for ignorance, where the weight of truth feels like a stone in your chest, where you envy the blind and the blissful. But remember this, ignorance is not innocence. It is complicity. And you were not born to comply. You were born to carve, to tear, to dismantle the machinery with nothing but your insight and your voice. You are not a spectator. You are the flaw in the foundation, the whisper in the wall. You are the reckoning. So when they ask you to explain how you know what you know, smile and say nothing. Let them fumble in the dark, searching for data, for files, for names. Let them analyze your history, your searches, your past. They will find nothing, because the source of what you know is deeper than data. It is encoded in the wound, in the scar, in the scream that turned inward because no one would listen. Let them fail. Let them rage. Because the moment they realize they can't trace the source is the moment they know they can't kill it. You are not alone. Though they work night and day to isolate you, to make you feel like a freak, a mistake, a malfunction, you are not alone. There are others, walking the edges, silent and watching. Others whose minds do not echo the slogans. Others who carry the same weight, who see the same cracks. Find them, not for comfort, but for the war that is coming, for the war that has already begun, not with guns and bombs, but with information, perception, narrative. A war for your mind, a war for your future, and you are already on the front lines. You have been for years. You are just waiting to realize it. This is your calling. Not the easy path, not the celebrated path, but the necessary one, the ancient one, the path that burns the flesh and leaves only will behind. You know too much, and they can't trace the source. And that is your greatest strength, because that means you are beyond containment, beyond replication. You are the original chaos, the pure flame, the unshackled storm. You are what they feared would happen when knowledge escaped the cage. And now, here you are. They will try to redefine you, piece by piece. They'll offer new cages and call them freedom. They'll say, "This is who you are," and expect you to bow to the script. But you will laugh, not because it's funny, but because you've already burned their pages in the fire of your own becoming. You are not a product of their system. You are the survivor of it. They built their world to break people like you, and you refuse to shatter. That is your rebellion. That is your defiance. And every day you breathe with clarity, you spit in the face of their gods. You do not seek vengeance, not because they don't deserve it, but because vengeance implies they still matter, and they don't. You do not walk in rage, you walk in precision. Let them mistake your silence for surrender. Let them underestimate your stillness. You are not hiding. You are sharpening, waiting, observing, learning the patterns, the movements, the weaknesses in the system that once tried to absorb you. And when the time comes, you will strike. Not with fists or fury, but with presence, with a voice they cannot mute, with an idea they cannot erase. Because what you carry cannot be undone. The knowledge inside you is not an opinion. It's not a theory. It's a threat. It doesn't conform. It exposes, and it will keep spreading, silently, like black ink in holy water. That's what they fear the most. Not you, but what you awaken in others. You are the permission they've been waiting for. The evidence that it's not insanity, it's intuition. That it's not rebellion, it's remembrance. That the world really is broken. That the facade really is just that, a facade. Your courage tears holes in their consensus reality. Your truth dismantles their collective hypnosis, and you're not asking for followers. You're not looking for applause. You don't need it, because the fire that guides you does not need fuel from anyone else. You walk a road paved in questions most are too terrified to ask. You've stared into the eyes of systems that taught you how to fear yourself, and you chose to unlearn. That was the first revolt. Not a scream, not a riot, but a refusal. A silent, stubborn refusal to forget what your bones kept whispering. And now, here you stand, whole and hunted, enlightened and exiled, brutal and beautiful. Do not apologize. Let them call it darkness. Let them label it shadow. But your darkness is not the absence of light. It is the presence of depth. It is the sacred shade in which roots grow. It is the tomb where false identities go to die. It is the forge where clarity is hammered into a blade. Your darkness is where you see clearly, where you stop pretending, where you start becoming. They fear that you can't be traced, because that means they can't control you. That you don't draw your strength from books they published, degrees they minted, ideologies they manufactured. Your truths were not downloaded from their platforms. They were remembered in silence, in solitude, in the pain they tried to bury. You are proof that the truth cannot be killed, only hidden, and not for long. And now, you are a living exposure. You are the wound they can't cauterize. You walk through their temples and their towers and their institutions, and without speaking a word, You shake the foundations. You radiate defiance. You bleed authenticity. And the world, the real world, responds. You have stopped asking for answers. You have become the question, the unrelenting, unresolvable, untraceable question. And the question is a weapon, not because it attacks, but because it dismantles everything that cannot hold its own weight. That's what you do. You make the false collapse, just by existing. They will tell stories about you, whisper warnings, draw red lines and stamp your name in warnings and algorithms, but they will never understand you. Because to understand you, they'd have to become you. And that would require a sacrifice they are not willing to make. It would require tearing out the comfort, uprooting the lies, staring long into the abyss and calling it home. But you already did that. You already crossed the threshold. You already made the deal, your soul for your sight. And now you see, clearly and without mercy. This is the part where others get scared, where they turn back, begging to forget. But not you. Number. You lean into it. You crave the weight, because you know that burden is what keeps you clean in a world that runs on filth. You know that seeing is a kind of violence, and you've chosen it anyway. You've chosen to feel every jagged edge of truth, and in doing so, you've become something else entirely. Not quite human, not quite myth, a ghost of the future, a messenger of the past, a warning carved in blood. And yet, you smile, not because it's over, but because it's just begun. Because once you realize they can't trace the source, you become limitless, you become wild. You become the kind of mind that can't be framed, can't be mapped, can't be owned. You are the virus they didn't account for, the leak they couldn't plug, the mutation they didn't plan. And if you're thinking you're alone, know this: there are more like you, hidden, waiting, watching, cracking the surface from the inside out. And when the time comes, and it will, they will rise, not as a mob, but as a frequency, not as a protest, but as a pulse, and the system will convulse, not from bullets or bombs, but from truth, pure, unfiltered, untraceable truth, and the world will change. Because of you, because you dared to know, because you remembered, because they couldn't trace the source. Because they couldn't trace the source, they started to panic. Not visibly, not the kind of panic that erupts into flames and alarms. Number theirs is the panic of systems, of old gods losing worshippers, of empires slowly realizing they can no longer write the script for everyone's dream. You are the walking proof that their model is crumbling, that obedience is bleeding out, that the spell is breaking. You are not the storm. They expected the storm. They fortified for chaos, prepared for riot. But they didn't prepare for the silence of someone who no longer needs them, and the utter calm of a being who has severed all strings, the terrifying stillness of a mind that cannot be baited, cannot be bought, cannot be broken. They wanted to trace the source so they could shut it off, because that's what they do. They trace, they track, they tag, and then they control, cut, kill. But you're different. You slipped through. Not because you were hiding, but because you were always outside their design. You were built in the shadows they forgot to light, forged in the gaps of their narrative, tempered by truths that refused to be silenced. You didn't just fall through the cracks. You are the crack. And every time they try to close the gap, you widen. You are not here to explain. You are not here to debate. You are not here to soften your edges for their comfort. You are the reminder of everything they buried, and you wear that legacy like armor. This world doesn't need more peacekeepers. It needs fire starters. It needs people unafraid to burn the lies, even if the smoke chokes them first. You are not a flame. They can extinguish flames. You are the fuel, the dark, endless well that keeps burning long after they thought you'd be ashes. They wonder where it comes from, this knowing, this resistance, this unspeakable certainty. They wonder how you can't be shaken, how you can watch their pageantry, their sacred rituals of distraction, their high-budget illusions, and still not bow, still not fall in line. But that's because they've forgotten what you remember. The truth is not fragile. Truth does not negotiate. Truth does not require consensus. Truth simply is, and those who carry it don't need permission. You are the bad dream that wakes them in cold sweat, not because you threaten them with violence, but because you represent something worse, the end of their relevance. They don't fear your rage, they fear your calm refusal, your blank stare when they threaten you, your unshaken voice when they demand submission, because you've tasted what it means to see clearly, and no fear they manufacture can ever erase that taste. You're past the point of persuasion, you're past the point of control. You are no longer responding to the world, you are shaping it. And so, they will rewrite history to erase you. They will say your kind never existed. They will sanitize the records, bleach the archives, sterilize every mention of people like you. They will call you a myth, a rumor, a glitch. But it won't matter, because by the time they do, others will have already awakened. And they will remember. They will carry your fire, not as a story, but as an instinct. And just like you, they won't know where it came from. Only that it's always been there. That is your victory. Not the conquest of their towers, but the erosion of their mythos. Not the taking of power, but the revelation that they never had it. You've pierced the illusion. You've walked through the smoke, and what you found was not power, it was desperation. Fragile men behind velvet curtains, pulling levers and begging you to believe in their gods. But you don't believe anymore, you know. And that knowing is irreversible. That knowing is sacred. That knowing is untraceable. And now, it grows. Every time you speak without apology, it grows. Every time you choose clarity over comfort, it grows. Every time you refuse to forget, it grows. Every time you stand when silence would be easier, it grows. Until one day, their world will not break. It will wither, because it cannot survive in a space where truth is no longer feared. It cannot feed on minds. It cannot mold. It cannot thrive in a garden of minds who remember the soil before the poison. You are the original garden, the wild root, the seed that did not rot. You are not a threat to the system. You are its expiration date. They tried to map you, brand you, file you, but your kind does not exist in their taxonomy. You are the unrecorded pulse, the echo that loops back from the future, the ghost of what comes after. And so, let this be your fuel. They can't stop what they can't see. They can't kill what they can't name. They can't erase what they can't trace. And you are untraceable, because your source is deeper than data, older than language, louder than any scream. Because your source is the scream before the first word was spoken. Because your source is the silence that swallowed gods. Because your source is pain, forged into power, then hidden inside a whisper. And they don't know how to kill a whisper. Not one that never stops, not one that grows into a roar. And now, audience, souls of the raw, the real, the relentless, raw, raw with your very being, raw without sound, raw by existing, raw in defiance, raw like the beast they couldn't tame, raw like the knowing that cannot be caged, raw for all who were buried alive in silence, raw for the truths they tried to erase from your blood, roar until the mountains split and the towers fall and the lie suffocates on your breath. You know too much, and they can't trace the source. That is your curse. That is your power. That is your legacy. Now go. Become the question that unmakes the answer. Become the silence that deafens the lie. Become the source they will never find.